Hello and welcome everybody to the Truth Lab. This is episode number 8. It's November 21st. It's just after 11 a.m. I'm coming to you today from sunny Florida, and today's special guest is Elasa. Did I say that right?
Elasa. Yeah, you got it. You're gonna
E-
get it.
yeah, Elasa with the R3 Miracles team. And this is going to be a really special podcast because we both live in the same area and we've interacted in person before. And I met her at one of her wellness centers, and she's still there actually. I think it's a different name now.
Hmm.
But yeah, I'm really excited. And normally we try to have these discussions be about an hour long. It's going to be just a little shorter than that. So let's get this off to a great start. Do you want to share a
Yeah.
little backstory, E? And we'll dive into your truth seeking journey.
Okay. So I'm so grateful for you inviting me, Alex, to this. This is awesome. And so my journey, just to kind of give a little backstory, is I was brought up in a very unique family that of meditators, of truth seekers. And so I was, as a teenager, kind of like not wanting to hear everything, but getting exposed to everything that we're seeing right now. And so that was pretty wild for a teenager to understand all the things that I just did some deep dives over the last 4 years on the birth certificate and social security number and things like that, and the SESQ trust. So I started, like I said, with truth seeking and seeing all the smoke and mirrors and all the programming going on in a very close view. And I didn't want anything to do with it. So I ran to the woods and I did, schooling in college and master's programs, things like that. But I was already on my truth seeking, which was the soul. And so I didn't want anything to do with what the world was showing me from my parents' discoveries, but I wanted to make sure I went higher than that and started meditating and became a yoga instructor, things like that, healing arts facilitator. And I really started to go within and help people with what I still do now, which is basically work with the Akashic records. I love your books behind you because it's like, the library. And so the Akashic field is all the information that could ever happen, will happen, and is happening in this experience of the game we find ourselves in. And I like people to be able to go within and ask a pre-meditation questioning like who, what, when, where, why. Like what's going on here? Just like when you do the 5 Ws, like if I'm experiencing something, where did it really come from? The origination point. What's the conception point, the pebble that dropped in the pond that gets you to where you're finding yourself right now? So I love people to do that deep dive and see what comes up so that they can reprogram their subconscious mind and live in a better world. And so that kind of jumps up to where we're at right now, where I did a lot of that deep diving per spirit's guidance to really find out some deep nuggets around why humanity was finding itself in such big bindings from maps and from four-corner documents and books that are square and rectangle and literally create a binding, and a map that creates a binding that keeps you focused on location when there is no location, keeps you focused on what you believe to be out in front of you as far as, a city or a street, but really is not that fixed. And so where I find myself now is I did all that deep understanding of all those bindings, but yet even though I know a lot of them now, I can't say I know all of them. Spirit now really is focused on best life, on utopia rather than dystopia. So even though I could go real deep on truth with us here right now, Spirit is very adamant that I steer clear with a smile and with like joy and focus on the science of manifestation, which is where we focus is what's going to grow. So what do we want? And we are going to find new truths as you and I were dreaming last night together, or at least our psyches were. And so for me, I always dream the night before, like a week before what's happening the next day. And so in the dream, we were like popping through domes. And basically, I teach a lot about that. We have Friday Soul School here at 1 p.m., which is awesome, where, Spirit just channels through all these awesome discoveries. But we talk a lot in the past month about breaking through the domes, which are all these programmed, again, mind stuff, these bindings, and popping through to find other realms, and other like perfected higher realms that are literally, heaven on earth, a true heaven, because there's a lot of like distortion even around that term as well. But these higher reality patterns that are waiting for us to embody more of who we really are, which is the presence. But in the dream, we were like popping through these domes, and I was like, yeah, look at this one and look at this one, and a dome meaning like it's just an arch, it's not a full sphere, but it's a dome that literally, like I said, is holding higher packet of memorized material, because all time in this game has already happened. And so we think we're experiencing these new things, but they're in the field. And so as we keep graduating within our central channel, graduating within ourselves, we find new, realms to experience. And again, what we're focused on as far as being in the creator seat is what are we actually projecting out in front of us.
I love that. And it sounds like you've been a truth seeker for a very long time. It just comes natural.
Yeah, for sure.
Spiritual immune system or something. And when you're talking about the domes, I mean, I want to keep it simple, but it kind of reminds me of, I don't know, maybe like hyperdimensional geometry or something, like different octaves, and the idea of kind of progressing through or ascending up, through. And, I got to throw in there a little bit because when I hear dome, I think of the Truman Show movie, like,
yeah,
truth-seeking journey, So cool.
Yep.
So anyways, so you're saying Friday there's Soul School. I know you made an app about this, right? Isn't it about the Akashic?
Yeah. So we have the AKASHIC Soul Pro app, and it's 11:11. On Androids, it's free. So if someone has an Android phone, you can download it for free. On Apple phones, let's see if I have it on this tablet. On Apple phones, it is $9.99 still. But anyways, it gives you the who, what, when, where, why. You can muscle test or use your superconscious abilities to intuit the who, what, when, and why. It gives you 23 charts that you can go through for someone who's just wanting to dial in, like, why is this happening in my life? Or I want to manifest something. Or it has an automatic button where you can just like push the automatic button and it'll give you 23 lenses of the reality and why things are happening now. And it's really powerful. And you can use it, like I said, to find out information of patterns so that you become aware, self-aware of like, okay, well, let me shift that. But you also, more importantly, can use it on creation of like what you want and what you want to focus on. So it's really fun. And people here at the center for the past, 9 years helped develop that. So that was really a fun project for us to work together as a team. But yeah.
It's awesome, because I was about to ask, through the process of going through manifesting yourself and then helping others, you've probably noticed patterns of what typically prevents somebody from fully manifesting. You know what I'm saying? And then it seems like probably that app is like a tool.
Right. So everything in the field is, there. And our body, the fascia of the body, and the field at large, the Akash at large, which is, Akash means space, and space or sky. And so when you're looking at the Akash of the body map as well as outside of you, that typically is like the subconscious mind. And so that subconscious mind is projecting our reality in front of us. So most of that's running on autopilot, like 95% of your thoughts, which is your subconscious, is on autopilot. So it's all that memorized content that's just like recycling itself. And you think like, oh, it's, it was your thought, but literally just coming in from this like cycle of memorized material. And you got to empty your cup, you know, you got to like empty it out for you to have new. So people who have these patterns, you know, they're wanting to manifest, but they keep manifesting the same thing of the lower version. It's typically because of, you know, something memorized, usually like pre 7 years old, you know, memorized unconscious viewing of your parents or things going on in your life. And then you just block that into the fascia, and that just keeps projecting itself out infinitely until you become self-aware enough to go, I don't really want that anymore. So let me clear, cancel, delete that. You know, it's a fun command. And the body computer has to listen, because we got out of order, like thinking that this body and this mind is it. Like, you know, when you think a thought, like your awareness, who you really are, the I am, the presence, us, who we really are, is observing that. So as we start to realize the body and the mind was actually our servant and not who we are, then we start to reprogram it and putting it in right order. And that's why, like, you know, affirmations are power, you know, focusing on, just had a call come in. Hopefully it didn't put me sideways. Maybe it did.
Yeah. I'll be back.
Let's see if it'll let me. There we go. So that has something, there's a meaning to that. I'll say that in a second. So we want to use those affirmations to put new memorized material into the mind. And that's why what you put in your orifices, all 9 of them, you know, especially your eyes, your ears, and your mouth, is really important, because that's going to infinitely project out in front of you and become your new subconscious mind. So like movies we're watching, and again, all this material of like the truth, you know, like the truth of the smoke and mirrors and the bindings. Yeah, we want to find them, but then we want to dissolve them, you know, delete them, and reprogram what we want. So as humanity awakens to these, you know, conspiracy theories that weren't conspiracy theories, are actually truth, when they find them and you find that it's there, you have to ultimately find your hand in it, meaning somewhere in the great oneness, you created it, whether you got lazy, whether you were, you know, sitting around as like a group in your past life, creating it because you went to the left and got real greedy, or whatever it was. We have to find that we created this somehow. And once you can find it, then you can actually understand and have forgiveness and compassion and go, oh, that's just the way we came here to play, but that no longer serves me. And so then we can reprogram and project what we want and meditate on what we want, make new affirmations. Like, I'm so grateful there's like food for us everywhere. I'm so grateful that everybody's like come into their heart and they're now like just massively sharing. I'm, you know, as we rise in these higher realms where these things are already happening, then we become a divine match, because that's what we've memorized and what we're projecting into the field. So it's like a meeting of the field that you're projecting and the higher realm that already is. And when that congruence happens and that aligns, we find ourselves sometimes like on an island with maybe just a community. You know, there's a lot of communities rising up that are living in their own unique ways of like trading or whatnot. But as these bigger packets open, you know, there's a lot of factors involved. There's a lot more cooperation that has to happen, and a lot more of humanity that has to wake up to have these higher utopian experiences to come back online. Mm-hmm. So it's an individual experience, right? So we can focus on our community and like what's right in front of us. That's the most important thing. And then we dream bigger. You know, we think about bigger landscape when we're meditating. And some people think, well, meditating is just to go into stillness, which it is, but you can premeditate and visualize a better world. You can, you know, add in your whole like state of Florida, like what do you want to see into each community and each city? And then as a world creator, which is what I'm after, is connecting with world leaders and a new world, new earth leaders who want to be not, you know, just thinking about themselves, but think about the bigger picture, and put that into our premeditation station visualizations. And that is where we're at. You know, there's so many people on the planet doing that right now. So we're at the right gateway for these upgrades to start to actualize in front of us. And if they're not, it's because you still believe they are not. And so that's why it's important as spiritual community, as New Earth leaders, that we do a little bit of the research and then we focus on the solution. What do you want to see?
Mm-hmm. I like that. I like your balance and emphasis on manifesting. And then with what you just said, because I do feel like sometimes, things can be subliminal for us, but then once we become aware, we're aware, we can't really go back to forgetting, and then this idea of there's lessons to be learned and not just learned, but understood. And it's like, until we understand, it keeps happening, because it's like, we're the ones orchestrating it, and it's for our own discovery and learning, and to realize like that understanding is what's needed to progress to the next level. So I like the whole world leader thing, and even this, I mean, I'm sure you agree, sometimes to reflect on the world, we can label it as this physical material world, but like you're saying, I mean, when we're meditating and we're visualizing the world, it's like, well, what's really going on? It's like this aspect of the world is like inside of us, and our ability to change the way we look at the world, and then the world we look at changes.
Yes, it is. I mean, finally, science is catching up, like the science is catching up in quantum mechanics and quantum physics to understand, like, there is nothing. When you close your eyes, it goes blank, it's just back to waves. There's nothing, and there's nothing. And when we open, yes, it particleized from a wave to particles stacking up on each other to have it look like we're seeing what we see. And it looks so solid. It looks so fixed. And it's not, it's just a sum total of the beliefs of what we memorized to be there. And so it's super fun to be here now in this timing and to get all these huge nuggets, humanity getting the nuggets of like you just said, that's such a beautiful one, that it's all inside of us. It's really powerful.
It could also be responsibility, you know what I mean? Because we have to be very intentional with our imagination, right?
Yes. And when you get good at, when you've cleaned out your Akash, when you've cleaned out your kitty, whatever you think is so quick, so I'm like, I'll barely think something and I'm like, oh, steer that, because I just watch it actualize so quickly in front of me. And not that it's bad, it's all a game, and it's all okay if it seems like it's bad that actualizes because I thought it, or which came first, the chicken or the egg? Was it happening and I thought it? Which direction, who really knows? Because like you said, there's lessons, like we have to we have to understand, like, okay, well, why is it even there? Why is it memorized? And that's why the conception point is so key, because you can go to try to clear something out, but yet it still comes back. Well, why? Well, because it's ancient. And so when you find that origination point, so, a lot of times you're just saying to yourself, well, I'm just imagining this. Well, yeah, everything, you're imagining everything. So if you imagine, like you ask your consciousness, why can't I get rid of that vision? Where did it originate? And you hear because your auditory skills are good, or you see a vision, whatever way you get your clairs, your clairaudience, etc. Whatever comes to you, and you can trust that. Like if you hear that it was 17 lifetimes ago, and your mother did X, Y, or Z, and you then confirm with your consciousness, is that true? Consciousness, meaning address it. You want to address your consciousness. Otherwise, you're just going to hear like 10 things come up. You want to stay on one telephone line. And maybe you're not talking to that word consciousness. Maybe you're talking to your soul, or you're a guide or something. But you want to address something and confirm, was it 17 lifetimes ago with my mother doing X, Y, or Z? Yes. Okay, wow. That's old. Like that's a long memorization of this pattern, and no wonder it couldn't just have it go away. So you get those details, and then you gain understanding. Like, well, why did that happen? Oh, and you get another download or another inner, voice sharing of like your mother was struggling, and it was hard times. You were living in the ice in Alaska. Who knows? Or some continent that we haven't even talked about yet. Um, then you're like, oh wow, and with that understanding, we understand now again with quantum mechanics that once particles of light understand, once the information that's held in them is understood, it literally can come back negentropic, back to midline, meaning it can come home. It can't come home until it's understood. So it literally holds a binding in the reality of web with a particle, a plasmoid that's spun in right there. And that plasmoid is held out in the field or in your fascia or in the ether or in the magnetics of the earth until it's understood. And so this then comes really powerful because you got that nugget of conception point understanding, whatever you're understanding. It might be layered because you might have it happen, or excuse me, more might come to you, a dream or more downloads come to you through time. But that onion starts unpacking itself and you start getting more and more of your essence back, which is light. Photonic light is essence, soul essence. That's why we are light. And when that light comes home, you turn back into a star because you truly are. And that star comes home and illuminates. Then when you think something, it's instant. That's how this work is so powerful, because the more light you call home through understanding, the more power you have.
I love that. I can't help but think of the R3 Miracles team, and kind of the reoccurring download I receive is from traumatized to self-actualized when it comes to,
Yes.
helping humanity or helping us all, and this idea of like what you've alluded to, like we can't focus too much on what's like caused the trauma, but it's about there's lessons and understandings and that propelling to, I say the word self-actualized, but whatever we want to say, um, you know, um, unity consciousness, peace on earth, things like that. So, I got to give a plug for, I know you're very aware of the moringa tree. There's
Yes.
this video sponsored by the Moringa Man, but it's kind of my vision. So I need to do this more, but there's times I've meditated and I just imagine like everybody opening their mailbox and grabbing moringa. And basically with 100 capsules, it's a month's supply. And, of course, I'm big into plants and growing them all yourself and actually having a relationship, like, connecting energetically, spiritually with the plant and exchanging oxygen, carbon dioxide, all of that. But I'm just saying, because when you're saying that we're made of light, that's kind of how I like to think of moringa, that the little leaves are little solar panels, and just so nutrient dense. And then to just help that, get into our body, because, we are spiritual beings having a human experience. And unfortunately, society doesn't necessarily reflect that reality, when it comes to, promoting our health and well-being, to the maximum capacity. So yeah, I just wanted to throw that little, plug in there because of the vision of like, how it, just seeing it like we're talking about, it's happening right now, society, people. I mean, because there's a lot of healing that's needed, but remember, it's like an individual's decision to heal. But then the idea that, by knowing their support, and even like what you've alluded to, like how sometimes people, they heal when they don't receive advice, but they feel that emotional support or spiritual support, and somehow, but yeah, so I just try to balance everything here about using our imagination to focus on utopia while also kind of addressing uh, these changes that are needed to help with going from traumatized to self actual.
Action. Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, and moringa is so powerful because of those 9 amino acids, that the body needs to get from food, and just the power of the pack of light that's coming in. And so when our cells are talking to each other because of getting those minerals, not only the cells, but the light body, knowing those minerals are needed for the energy centers to spin and then to stabilize back to a star, you have to have those building blocks within, or at least, that's one belief system. Ultimately, everything's could be even more instant when we know who we are truly as light. But these are definitely powerful tools. The moringa is such a powerful tool and an assistant to have for that self-actualization to happen more naturally. So kudos to you for making it into a package like that to deliver out to everybody. That's awesome.
Yeah, and I love public speaking about it, and I can't help, and I'm sure you resonate with this. The idea of being like a breatharian, or just living off of the living light, but this balance of like permaculture and growing food and eating food that you grew yourself or nice restaurants, and this whole balance, because sometimes I don't know. In some of my contemplations, it seems like, for really spiritual beings, like we don't necessarily, need to eat food, but it brings people together. You know what I mean? And,
Yeah.
it's just really interesting to sometimes contemplate on, things like fasting and how that can like reset and just heal the body. And to realize, like, for a lot of people, sometimes they're not realizing, like, they're actually harming themselves with the type of food or fake food that they're
Yeah.
consuming but addicted to, so
Yeah, right. Like I said, what we're putting in our 9 orifices, and like where that's binding us to. So if you're eating like all that food that's dense, you're eating the food that's lacking any nutrition, etc. You're just further putting an anchor in your belly that anchors you down to the underworld and to the first realm. And so there's nothing wrong with that because you have nuggets to find there to unearth and remember who you are. Um, but eventually that what doesn't sustain collapses. And so people then have a dark night of the soul, or they'll have a breakdown or a health ailment come over them. And then the spirit comes alive again. It's like, hello, remember why you're here. And they may choose to pass on and transition because eternity is a long time, or they may choose to embrace eternity and like, get back in their body and revitalize it again. And then they rise up their central channel and then they make better food choices. So it's so powerful. And yeah, the breatharian, as well as just the intermittent fasting or fasting itself, how fast it repairs, it's powerful for people to look into that. Yeah, for sure.
so with your community, what are you all working on manifesting right now? And sometimes if you reflect on, like, well, what were you trying to manifest a year ago or 2 years
Yeah,
ago, and like
yeah.
kind of learning
No,
this.
like, yeah, what I said, like now we're focused on this utopia, on what we want. Of course, you got to fill your cup first. So a lot of the gatherings, we're always filling our own cup. And then that overpour into visualizing. There's probably not a time we don't leave here when we end our time together visualizing a better world and visualizing, the recent thing with hurricanes. So we visualize the streets being cleaned up. We visualize people getting checks printed from ether and what we call the treasury and have them dropped in their mailbox. We visualized all sorts of different level of actualization to like benefit the community. And a lot of those things, like I call them middle way manifestations, like because whatever you believe in still, like sometimes you got to have those, what things are logical for you to believe that it could come that quickly. But on the high level of manifestation, it doesn't take these logic. It can just be out of logic where their house is repaired magically. And sometimes people come again, they have to like believe that a group of 19 people showed up from a Samaritan's purse and like fixed up their house. again, because it's more logical for them to believe that. But there is, as we realize, there's nothing really linear happening. It's just what we can allow to shape shift and quantum shift into what we're manifesting to be instant and to be really far out, like shocking what you can manifest. So what's different from what we're manifesting, I think it's for us in this last building where we're at right now, that was Solterra. We've been doing ascension gatherings, ascension circles for the whole time here. And we've always been focused on whatever is going on collectively. And a lot of it was probably around conspiracy theories, like making sure humanity could see those clearly. So we would like visualize them having aha moments. We did the deep dive on finding the Akashic record, where they began, why they maybe were benefiting the humanity still at this time, if they were still going on. So it's been wild to see like what is coming like clear for humanity in 2024. Like if you look at YouTube and you see what's being shown on Truth, like those are some of the things we were really focused on, helping making sure those got seen.
I love the visualizing aha moments, because sometimes it's just powerful, because without getting too deep or weird, it's like there's all these sayings or insights, if you good luck trying to change somebody else, because most people can't even change themselves. And it's like the only person we can change like is ourselves. And, when we realize that, but then the idea of we all have hopefully experienced these aha moments, going from making new connections and then all of a sudden. So to kind of manifest, I think I've definitely done that as well, and just putting it out there, because it is unfortunate. I do correlate a lot of this with nutrition and health when it comes to people's ability to have disagreements, in a civil manner where it's respectful and each person feels heard, and it's like, mature people like having a difficult discussion, but really the whole purpose of it is, each person to broaden their views, and unfortunately sometimes it's like, I guess I have to walk my talk with what we're talking about of manifesting that and not thinking too much about the problem of like, people being stuck in their ways or not interested in thinking differently, or having an aha moment, as well too. So,
and we talk about that a lot, because we have to remember, at least in my reality, from what I've researched and what we're practicing now, is that we have to allow them to be different. We have to memorize them to be different. So we have to memorize in the fascia and in the ether. That I love when I get on the phone call with them, that everybody can hear each other. And then I love that everyone I talk to from now on, and we do these solution gatherings, masterminding, that they're actually their woke up soul, that they're, embodied, and that we get to experience like 7 embodied souls taking turns listening to each other and like problem solving and like seeing the diverse point of views. How cool. So that's me in the morning. I'm prepping, like today's going to be an amazing day. My talk with Alex is going to be awesome. And then I memorize that, and then I get to experience that in this slowed down game we find ourselves in. Yeah. Because we've gotten out of order. Like I said, we were like basing what's going on outside of us and the projection of the memorization of that people aren't eating healthy, right? Because we based what we just saw and made that our future. Mm-hmm. But it's this, if we looked, when you have an out-of-body experience, or if you've had near-death experiences, for me, I've had 2, and I've seen the view. And even when I dreamt with you last night, I was seeing us at the realms. When you see that this is a game, that again, there's, let's just put it simply, if there's 12 realms, there's 12 versions of you, And so I need to memorize and be in quantum entangled with the eternal you that knows all and that eats healthy and that's having a blast here. And that's what I'm focused on, like the new world building. Like I'm focused on making sure my eye on the target is within to that. And that those people that come in front of me, which they are, those magical beings like yourself come in front of me, that we like towers of light are arcing, creating a big, beautiful new space and plane of existence to play on.
Hmm. I love that. And even now it makes sense with the dome or the arc, like you were saying, kind of, just the synergy that happens. And, know, so I guess how does permaculture fit into this? Because I know you're interested in permaculture. I like to, without getting, too far out there, some buzzwords. I'm really passionate about stateless societies and this idea that, I'm sure whatever the population is, because sometimes there's even questions about how many people are here right now. There's already little pockets, you called them islands, maybe. The idea of there's already intentional communities, in this world where people are trying to figure out, like, how to live in unity consciousness. And so I guess with what I'm saying, have you personally visited any of these intentional communities or been in contact or trying to emulate or stuff like that? And then coming back to permaculture, because I do see, more, in my opinion, I've been part of permaculture since like 2010, so I've definitely seen it, maybe becoming mainstream, not so much fully mainstream, but the idea that not everybody in permaculture sees the connection with like a stateless society and the idea of it's called volunteerism, where we kind of without being like anti-state, the idea that sometimes government can be viewed as this thuggery and theft and it's not necessarily based on the non-aggression principle, which obviously is a requirement if we're really trying to live in a higher consciousness community or society. So sorry, that's a lot, but just going back.
No, yeah. So the heart's opening, right? When the heart of humanity opens, and again, my meditation requires me to memorize that everybody's in their heart now, and we're living in this new stateless society, and everyone took responsibility and self-governing, and everyone knows they're an eternal soul. When I embody that, which that's part of also one of my, things I'm working on, what you just shared, I want to embody that. That means I have to act as if it already is. And this is where pretend, which we were told as children was not to be done, but that's the actual truth of creation reality, is to pretend. And so we have to tending to these visions and to these embodied visions of, meaning vibrationally, I have to hold that and I have to expect it to be there. Even when the circumstances outside don't show me that yet. So then I have to live it, right? I have to walk my talk. And so I have to self-govern, I focus on what's in front of me. And a lot of that, has to do with my garden, and the garden of earth. So I'm really big on, gardening everywhere. I'm a guerrilla gardener. I have crews of people who leave here and go pop seeds in random places, throughout most of since I was my 20s. We've given away thousands of moringa trees like yourself. So, people get reconnected back to the earth and back to self-governance of food and growing their own food. Then they start to awaken other ideas of, wait, like I have all I need right here within me. And then they open their heart and they see their brother or sisters in need of something. Oh, let me go help you with that. It's just inherent in the soul to know how to self-govern and to build out all that we see out in front of us in this app. I call it an app. Earth is like an app to me. In this place, this game we find ourselves in, that's got a system of, phi ratio and golden mean spiral to grow naturally in perfection. What we see on the garden, but also, there's even higher uploads that have come in recently reminding me that, they're not even supposed to, they're dying off too soon as far as the cycle of like the way the plants are growing. They were much bigger in other timelines, and we were much bigger in other timelines. And then in the eternal nature as angelics, when we dropped down here before a lot of mutations happen and experimentations, things were eternally spiraling and more malleable, meaning dematerialize and rematerialize would happen more than death. Like you would reparticleize something just because you're like, oh, well, like in a dream, I'm going to change that. And because that's really how creation happens. But we've, again, memorized a very dumbed down version of how we see everything in front of us, which is fine. We have compassion and forgiveness for where we find ourselves in this game. So yes, I know you put a lot in there. I've visited lots of intentional communities. I've participated in intentional communities, but coming home to this now moment, especially having a child who's a teenager now, I just work on, like I said, seeing it all intentionally, like breaking down the barriers and walls I possibly can in every now moment, as far as like knowing that we have all we need and reminding people around them, especially with Soul School, where we really are focused on like, all that you just said, we're focused on that, and we practice it together.
Well, you see possibilities, where it's a choice to either see limitations or to see it as an opportunity to grow. And that's what it comes back to, right? And,
Yeah.
and even this is just a reminder for myself to do more of this, because in permaculture, we learn about the harmony with nature and abundance, and this idea that it's in people's beliefs, like this is a dream we're in right now. But the thing is, for some people, whether it's the trauma, and as I'm saying this, trying to re-script it, to transition from scarcity and like believing in lack into abundance, because sometimes it's funny to reflect, like, if we really were in such a dystopian dream, we'd be like, paying for oxygen or something, that, you know what I mean? And it's silly to even think about that because it's in such abundance. And then, but then we start dealing with like what we are attempted to be indoctrinated with, like, oh, we're running out of fresh water. Oh, we're running out of this or that. And then, if they just believe it,
Right.
that's their dream. And, so to re-script, be open to like, the nature provides everything we need, not so much for greed, but even like what you were saying, it's like to truly be selfless, we do have to be a little selfish, and to see it as like, it's not selfish to prioritize our health and well-being.
Yeah.
And, it's natural to then want to help our family and our friends and community, and then, what that entails, all of that. So, and we all know it. Gratitude is a magnet for our heart and a big part of, manifesting, because whatever's going on, like the energy, if it's ethereal, and when we're feeling grateful, and how it brings other things for us to be grateful for. So I know I'm preaching to the choir, but I want to make sure I'm respectful of your time.
Yeah.
It's been really fun. I do look forward to connecting with you in person. I think probably last time was Ohana Fresh or something, and great people. I did my best to save that moringa tree. I don't know if it's still there.
It is.
They've been saying though that this developer is going to cut it down. So I planted a bunch of the seeds, and I'm like, it lives on.
Yeah. I took a bunch to the school I work with. So yeah. And then they took it all to their homes on that tree pod. Yeah.
Why it's called the never die tree, because it might not be that exact tree, but we got to think multidimensional. Like it's all the same, right? I mean, and it's kind of like in a better way to understand us, I think, too. Through
Yeah.
that. Like what does nature want us to understand? And then once we understand, and it's kind of weird because it's like history repeats itself, like you were saying. you know. Um, but yeah, is there any closing thoughts? Anything you'd like to, any way you'd
Yeah.
like discussion?
My yeah, my closing thought, like you said, nature is abundant and we are nature, as well as our eternal soul. Everything we utilize the nature of the body of that abundance is massive, like of what we can produce, what we can actually create. And beyond that, remembering that every thought that you consciously think and every word you consciously speak is the biggest currency on the planet. So we can do anything because we say it and so it is. So it's super powerful to be here on this time.
Nice. And
Yeah,
check out your app. You said it's free on Android and like 9.99 for iPhone, right?
yeah. Yeah, and if you're local, come by R3 Miracles on Friday Soul School or any of the other opportunities going on here. Super fun to be with conscious community.
What time is that Friday?
At 1. Yeah. Tomorrow at 1.
All right. Well, thank you so much. And please forgive me again. So Ela.
La Sa. Ela and Sa. Elasa.
Okay, good. All right, I was on it. So thank you so much, Elasa, with R3, miracles. And just to reiterate again, like we are in the same little habitat here in West Central Florida. So it's been really nice having you on, and thank you so much. I really
Thanks,
appreciate it.
Alex. Have a great day.
Thanks. Bye.